I don't think I've used my bathroom indoors since living here. I basically exclusively shower and bath outside. It also fits 2 people, which is fun. Hi Vogue, I'm Alex Tieghi-Walker. I am a curator. This is my home in Los Angeles. My studio works with a number of artists, all with very non-conventional art backgrounds. Every object in this home is a one-off piece. Today I'm going to show you some of my favorite things. This is the first piece I'd like to talk about. This is a light by my friend Stephen White, and it is weird. People walk in and they're sort of like, what is that weird octopus spidery thing hanging from the ceiling? It's funny, I'm normally so anti-plastic in my house. You know, everything here is wood, natural, you know, it's cotton, it's wool, but it's all reclaimed plastic. I love that. There's a sort of informality to the way that objects sit, and people can come into the space and fiddle around and move and touch. And you know, even when I do shows, that's sort of how I want people to engage with work. And I think this light really sums it up. This is my sunroom. When I moved in here, there was not a single plant, which seems like such a waste of a room. I've spent the past couple of years growing all kinds of things in here. Part of the joy of living in Los Angeles is this sort of like indoor-outdoor life. This is a mural of plants and flowers by a painter called Patricia Pecos, also known as Pato Pecos, who's from Argentina. The first murals she painted were in her home when she just moved in and had run out of paper to draw on, so she just used the walls of her house as a giant canvas. Watching her at work was kind of amazing because she uses oil pastels, crayons, pencils, watercolor. You know, none of these paints are intended for murals, so I don't know how long this will last, so there's also this sort of sense of semi-permanence about it. It's actually only half finished, but I sort of like it in this state where it feels unfinished, but at the same time it also feels very complete. This is one of the newest pieces in my home. It's by a Canadian artist called Jeff Martin. It's a cabinet made of ceramic tiles, almost like a patchwork quilt. The way that Jeff put this piece together, sort of passing these slabs of clay through what looks like a pasta machine to get these incredible textured works. There's something so expressive and intuitive about the work that a lot of the artists I'm working with are doing. And that leads to objects that have a lot more depth and story and really do feel like one-offs. And it's also my secret safe for things I love. One of my most cherished objects I actually wear every day, which is this ring. The ring is from a small little shop in Venice called Parapemiso. It's a memento mori, so it's in the shape of a skull, and it's a micro mosaic from the 1800s, so made of Murano glass, where they would create a composition and then put it through a machine that essentially sort of turned it into a miniature. It feels very Venetian, the whole experience of finding this guy. You know, you're in this sort of labyrinthine city with these tight alleyways, and this is one of those shops where truly you would blink and miss it. And you go in there and it's just him and his wife with trays and cabinets just full of these rings, and every single one of them is a real curiosity. This light by my friend Min Jae Kim was actually one of the first things I bought for myself. At the time, I definitely couldn't afford it. I love the way that it turns on. Min Jae's background is in architecture, and he started making objects while still practicing as an architect. He's super experimental. He was working in his little basement in Brooklyn. I remember the first time I went to visit him, he was just down there in this tiny little room with no windows, with sort of like toxic plaster and fiberglass fumes in the air. And I was like, Min Jae, mate, you've got to at some point move studio because you can't be cooped down here. But the stuff that came out of that basement at the time he was working there was really cool, including this light. The whole light is essentially one giant open electricity circuit. And again, just it really invites you in to sort of play with it and sort of see how it works. He called it the oyster lamp. Kind of entirely non-functional as a light because it doesn't give out much, but incredibly beautiful as an object. This is my treasure chest. I have hundreds of plates and mezcal cups and mugs and glasses because I host so much, and I always get people to sort of, you know, while I'm busy cooking, get people to come and sort of pick plates. And I get really excited when people pull some of these plates, which are from an organization in Oakland called Creative Growth. Creative Growth is an organization founded in the 70s with the belief that people with disabilities can express themselves through art in ways that they can't otherwise. So, you know, the organization provides studio space, gallery representation for artists, working across mediums from metal to wood to textiles to ceramics. They're so magical. This is by an artist called Kim Clark, who is very obsessed with celebrity culture. I wish I'd got more than just the one, but here I am with Sean Penn. They're just wacky. Look at this, the solar system. They just make me really happy to see these out on the table with people enjoying them. This stained glass window is one of my favorite things in the house that I actually didn't bring in. It was here already. In keeping with all the handmade stuff, this is the OG handmade piece. When I first moved in, I wasn't so keen on it and I nearly covered it up, but now it's truly one of my favorite things. This house was built in the 60s, or rather it was extended in the 60s by a hippie who actually built the entire thing himself. This is sort of like one of the last remaining parts of that hippiness. I love how the light at different times in the year projects through the window, beams ultramarine blue and fluorescent yellow back in the kitchen. Summer, the stained glass sort of hovers around this area. It's kind of magical. This is my little bedroom, one of the smallest rooms in the house, which I kind of love. When I travel, textiles are sort of the thing that I like to buy. You can really learn a lot about the history, culture, ecology, society of a place through its textiles. Even in this one hat, you're seeing indigenous dyes used, so you can learn about the ecology of the Andes, but you're also seeing their manufacturing processes because of the way that it's been woven. This is a traditional chulo, or an Andean mountain hat made of either alpaca or llama, which I bought when I was, I think, about 18. I was living in Argentina and my mum came to visit, and we did a giant road trip from Buenos Aires all the way up to Salta in the north, in the Andes. The guy who sold it to me thinks it's from the 1950s because it's all naturally dyed, so you've got the sort of different shades of cochineal beetle, the sort of greens and yellows coming from different Andean barks. My mother died about 8 years ago, and it's something that reminds me of her. Whenever I move house, even when I went to university, this hat is always the one thing that comes with me in my rucksack rather than with the rest of my cases, and it's always the first thing I put up in a house, and it's always next to my bed. This is one of my favorite places on the entire property. It's my bathtub that faces directly west. I don't think I've used my bathroom indoors since living here. I basically exclusively shower and bath outside. This is kind of a guilt-free bath because when I drain the water, it waters the garden. You get this beautiful sunlight in the evenings. And at night, it's really magical because you can sort of see all the houses and the hills in the distance. This courtyard really does feel like a sort of little lush jungle. You've got the shade of the guava tree. You've got all these ferns and this creeping plant. My friend Alison made this piece for above the bath out of leftover concrete and sand. It also fits 2 people, which is fun. This house and all the things in it mean the world to me. Thank you for letting me show you around. Right, dinner party time.